The Fiat 500, it's had a bit of a hard time in more recent times because you have to remember it's around an awful long time. For example, gorgeous girls probably drive around in Fiat 500s. Then there's the Love Island hashtag, which is a little bit unfair. The car that was back in electric, guys, you can get it in a hatchback and in a convertible. And if I tell you it starts from just under €25,000, you'd probably go, oh, that's interesting. But this version is actually closer to mid-30s, so it gets a little bit more expensive. Thankfully, Fiat have given you two options of batteries, so you don't have to have a particularly big battery. You can get a 24 kilowatt hour battery, which actually in today's standards is pretty small. Or you can get a 42 kilowatt hour battery. In a car this size, it's kind of acceptable. It'll get you a range of not quite 300 kilometers if you're going around town, put it onto a motorway, and it's fair to assume you can drop to half that. But there's lots of benefits to having a smaller battery electric car because you can charge it faster, it's lighter, you can use it as a city car, which in fairness this car kind of is. So there's 4 different trim specs in Ireland. Action, which is the entry-level car with 95 brake horsepower. Then there's Passion, Icon and La Prima, which is this. La Prima 500. Yeah, it's brutal. Anyway, there's some nice things I like about it. For example, the front of the car is totally different because you don't need a grille anymore. So you've got a nice different front on it. LED bright lights in this. Look at the little eyebrows on it. And these indicators pop out at the side of the car. And in this spec, in this colour, and with those wheels, it is a good looking little bus. It's also quite small. I mean, I could not quite stretch out my arms and get to the size of the car. But that's good because it's easy to park, it's easy to manoeuvre around town. It, however, doesn't mean a particularly big boot because it's 185 litres and that's it. That means you've got room for your Type 2 cable, room down here for your granny cable, and yeah, that's kind of about it. And if you go for the mid-spec and above versions of the car, you can drop down the 2 rear seats individually, so you might need a child seat in the back, although I'll get onto that in a second, and then you can drop down that seat. The parcel shelf, it's just, look at it. It's so cute. Like lots of things in this car. Smallest parcel shelf in the world, it has to be. Go for the convertible version, you'll lose 3 litres, 182. And for context, that kind of shows you how small this boot is, because if you can go from a convertible and only lose 3 litres, that's saying a lot. This version of the 500 can do up to 85 kilowatt charging if you find the right charger, but that does bring me on to a point. Over my shoulder here, you'll see just a standard on-street ESB charger. There's a couple of cars plugged in, as there should be, but even this quiet spot in Dublin on a weekend, it's proof that we just need more public chargers. I've got less than 50 kilometers left in this. I do need to charge it, and it would be nice to just have the option to do it there. I was at a gig during the week in Dublin, and there was a camper van parked in the electric spot. And again, I could have gone to my gig, charged the car, I would have been happy out, but I'm not. I'd love to show you around the back of the 500. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to humiliate myself by trying to get into the back of this car. Needless to say, with my seat back, and I'm not even 6 foot, there's that much leg room. Obviously, you can adjust this front passenger seat and you will manage to fit a child in the back once the child hasn't got particularly long legs. It's not a car for transporting kids or, for that matter, things in the back. What it is a very fun city car aimed at people who maybe are just a couple, maybe have a dog, a very small dog, and who maybe want a cool little city car as a second car, for example. Despite the relatively affordable price tag, it's actually pretty good in here. The standard of equipment from mid-spec up is very, very good, and this top-of-the-range La Prima version has everything. Every camera you'd want, every safety feature you'd want. In fact, I'd nearly argue there's too many safety features, and I'll get to them when we're driving in a second. You've got shortcut buttons for everything you'd need, wireless charging, a nice 10-inch plus display. It's not particularly deep, but it's nice and wide. Graphics are good. It's now asking me would I like to find a charging station. Well, I would. I'm here, but they're busy. because there's 44 kilometers left at 24% in the battery. Incidentally, 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers seems to be the norm for the car, which would suggest you're going to get just over 200 kilometers out of a charge from the way I've been driving it. I do like the fact that the armrest can slide. A lot of cars, more expensive cars, don't do that. A little bit of storage goes on down here. There's a USB port here and one here, as well as the wireless charging, and your buttons for selecting your gear, park, reverse, neutral and drive are just here. And there's loads of other controls, including radar guided cruise, which comes here. And I think for any criticism Fiat may have had in the past about interior build quality, I think that's kind of gone. I really like it. One thing I don't like is the fact that it says Fiat all the way throughout the seat. I wonder, can you delete that? Oh, and if you are a gorgeous, gorgeous girl, watch out for the fake tan on these cream seats on fake tan Thursday night / Friday morning, because you will be able to wipe them, but they'll show very, very easily. Oh, and there's buttons to open the door, electric buttons, but if you're anyway nervous, there's a backup function, which is an actual manual button down here that can open the door for you, which, by the way, are very, very heavy because it's just two-door. It's already beeping at me to say, what are you doing? Also, the car is made in Turin, so it has that nice Italian feel still going on, despite this being an ultra modern version of the famous 500. First things first, you start up the car. Plays you a little lullaby. It also does a kind of a sound as you're driving past people. A lot of electric cars do that, but this kind of does its own little jingly sound. It's quite strange. So you easily just select D on the dashboard. Away you go. The automatic handbrake lets go of its grasp and off you go. Steering is very, very light. Probably a bit too light, actually. Oh look, there's the charging that I can't charge at. So I'll just have to wing it and go home with 44 kilometers left and hope that I make it. Not my words at all, but my Italian friend, and who better should you meet when you're filming a Fiat 500 video, he said, but it is a car for the ladies, yeah? And I don't know about that. I mean, yes, you'll probably see more girls driving these cars. But again, I think as people just want smaller cars, they're kind of coming back into play, fashion. Why not? But yeah, generally as a rule, you probably do see more ladies behind the wheel of Fiat 500s. As you will have heard there, things started to beep. This is my problem with this car. There is loads and loads of safety tech, and that's really, really good and really, really useful. But I've tried to turn every single safety gadget that I can off, and everything is just a bit too hyper. And they're on the lowest settings. They're on sensitivity at the lowest settings. Whether you come near a line, which I'll try and get it to do now in a minute, or it thinks you're going to hit the car in front. You know, frontal collision avoidance, absolutely a brilliant safety gadget. But this car, even if you're just turning a corner, starts beeping at you. And it drives you absolutely bonkers. It's like, stop! It's very, very bright in here, and it's nice and airy because of that cream headlining. The glass roof can't be opened, but at least it lets the light flood in. And actually 118 brake horsepower, if you floor it, it really does take off. It handles very, very well. It's got pretty good levels of grip. There's also Sherpa mode, so if you flick down onto that, it gives you reduced climate and kind of kills all the other things that might zap your power in an electric car. And it, particularly when you're, you know, fairly full in the battery, it'll give you a nice little jump. At 43 kilometers now, if I flick into E mode, which is just down here on your left, you have to press it kind of a good few times. I go into Sherpa mode. Again, aircon's gone, and I've gone from 46 to 49 kilometers. Another 3. It could be the 3 to get you home though. And it also reduces the power, so when you floor the car, it really doesn't do an awful lot at all. So I'll just go back to normal mode, and you really need to kind of click that button quite a few times. Aircon doesn't automatically come back on, you've got to flick that on yourself, but that's fine. All the connectivity you want, like CarPlay, Android Auto, they're there. The nav is good. You can pick up loads of spaces for charging points. They're all there once they're not full, that is. It does handle quite well. You know, it's not overly harsh, but it can be a little bit soft and wallowy over bumps and, you know, going over hills and stuff like that. But it does handle reasonably well. You do hear a lot of the outside world. There's quite a few clunks and bumps as you go over things. I suppose you can look at it in the sense that you feel quite at one with the car, because for an electric car you generally sometimes don't feel like an awful lot of what's going on, whereas in the 500 you kind of do. You still feel part of the overall process of driving a car. One thing I do find, and again maybe this is just an Irish thing, but if you're in a smaller car like this, people just like to try and bully you off the road. If you're on the M50 in the overtaking lane, which this car is well able to do, 118 brake horsepower in a car this size with this much electric torque, it'll keep up with the best of anything. You still get people in vans, up your backside, just, not even just on motorways, just people trying to bully you around the road. And it's so weird. I really do, and I drive a lot of different cars, different sizes. I always notice the smaller the car you're in, the more people just try and bully around the place. It's just a weird thing. By the way, if you are stuck for space, there is ISOFIX in the front passenger seat also, just in case that rear area just is a little bit too much. Don't forget to turn your airbag off, of course, if you are putting somebody small in that passenger seat. Again, just too much beeping. Too much beeping. Like, what's that for? Like, I'm at a set of lights, I was doing 2 kilometers per hour. What are you beeping for? It's like, stop! It's like an alarm clock constantly going off in the car. It's really annoying. Gotta love that instant torque though. It just darts into life really quickly. The 0 to 50 kilometer time, really fast. But in general, I mean, okay, by rocket standards it's not there, but real world, that torque, absolutely perfect. It really is all the size you need. I would, for many reasons, probably go for the bigger battery if you're thinking about it. Residuals, faster charging, just more comfort. I think 24 kilowatt hour battery in 2022, albeit the difference that this car is quite small, I just think that's going to be a very small battery in a very short space of time, and I would definitely stretch him for the bigger one if I were you. The other problem with the stereotype of a Fiat 500 is if you're expecting to see a gorgeous girl behind the wheel of one, and then you pull up beside it or in front of it and this head greets you, it's going to be quite a letdown. If you're okay with lots of dissatisfied looks from motorists who might be expecting to see something gorgeous behind the wheel and instead they get you, well, you might have to get used to a lot of sad faces. If life doesn't need to be that serious for you, if practicality is a word that just isn't on your radar, then this is a fun little car. It might be a good second car for you, or it might just be your perfect primary car because you don't need loads of space and luggage and stuff like that. It's quirky, it's fun to drive, it really suits an electric car very well. And I know at this price for 35 it's a little bit expensive, but you're going to put smiles on your face and smiles on people's faces who you're driving by all the time, because it's just one of those cars. In fact, as I'm filming today, an Italian dude has come over to me, got one of these at home, not the electric one, loves them. The passion for them that's there, it's never going to fade, and it shouldn't, even though the 500 now has an electric motor. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.